Hello, everyone. Welcome back to, well, not Britain's Hangout Hour, but another discussion. I am joined today by Kyle. Once again, we're doing another thing. Kyle, introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Kyle Jonathan, film critic over at the Movie Sleuth. Happy to be back.
Yeah, we're not talking about a Shane Carruth movie today, unfortunately, but we are talking about, if I remember, you said it's your favorite book of all time. So I thought, why not talk about this? And it was kind of tough because there was a couple people I could have talked about this with, but yeah, it's Blood Meridian from Cormac McCarthy, who just recently passed away, unfortunately, almost a month ago now. Damn, time's gone by. Anyway, but yes, we're talking about what's considered his magnum opus, Blood Meridian today. So, yeah. Here we are. I don't even know how to begin this chat. So Kyle, what do you think about Blood Meridian? Just like blurb thoughts, real quick, before we discuss it. Like,
I think it.
or why is it your favorite book? I guess is a good thing to ask.
It's my favorite book because I love the prose. I love the way that he writes. It's one of the few books that when when you read it, it feels like it almost transports you to a completely different place. Like it feels on one hand it feels alien, on the other it feels like Dante's Inferno. It feels biblical. It feels apocalyptic. It feels esoteric. It feels dangerous. There's just nothing like it. There's no book like it, in my opinion.
Well, I have to say, Kyle, I couldn't have put it better myself. It's one of those books that kind of, yeah, it's like you said, it kind of feels like it's a book that puts you in another place, kind of. Reminds me a lot of Heart of Darkness, that there's like almost this mystical element, even though we're, I think, firmly in reality, for the most part. But, yeah, I know, it's just a lot of, yeah, it's a great book. Is it my favorite McCarthy? I don't know. He's written a lot of great books, in my opinion, so, but I do think it's his most complex book in terms of content, and even though I don't think 352 pages is very long, it is a very dense 352 pages. So, yeah. Blood Meridian. Here we are.
Meticulously researched too. Almost every page has like real life things that happened during the time. Yeah, so like even like the first page when he talks about the kid being born under the Leonids, like there actually was a meteor storm, the Leonids, in
Yeah,
that
I
year.
like that. I like that ducktail that he's born during a meteor shower and he dies during a meteor shower, or dies. That's left. Oh yeah, we're gonna spoil this, by the way. So if you haven't, read the book, maybe read it and then come back and see what we have to say about it. But yeah, no, I think Blood Meridian might be Cormac McCarthy's magnum opus. I think other people have said that. So, yeah.
Yep, it's considered one of the greatest American novels. It's on Time's 100 greatest novels list.
Well
And it
deserved.
didn't, and it wasn't well received when it debuted. Actually, it's over time as people have kind of discovered it. It's gotten a lot more praise. I don't even remember how I came to it by way of No Country for Old Men because I saw the film and then decided I was going to read the book, and then I read the novel and I really liked it, and I was like, oh, what else has this guy written? I started researching, and I was like, this sounds really scary and wicked, which is the kind of stuff that I like to read. So I just did the audiobook, and I've listened to it probably about 10 times over the years. I was trying to get through it one more time before this, and just time got away from me. But
I mean, you like Clive Barker, so I'm sure
I
Blood
do.
Meridian wasn't too bad.
Yeah, very different. Like, I don't think anybody writes like McCarthy. He has
No.
Well, I mean, like, he's kind of like Faulkner, but depending on the mood, on LSD or on on extreme, like almost like a Sartre or Nietzsche kind of like existential kind of tip. You know, and I think that's why Blood Meridian is so powerful and why people, because it's a puzzle.
Yeah.
You know, like I recently had a friend read it, and you know, they're reading it and they're like, well, they're like, the first like 2 chapters is just he's just walking around like beating people up and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but like once it gets there and you look back at everything, it all, you know, it's a patient read. You have to be very patient with it, and you have to be tolerant of a lot of abhorrent things, a lot of abhorrent behavior.
Yeah, no, there's some messed up stuff in this.
Would never, I doubt that it would be published today.
Yeah, no. This was his first take on the Western, and by God, what a take it was. Because he had mostly written Southern Gothic novels by that point. And he's like, I'm going to write a Western now. And then he puts out this. And I can see why a lot of people back when it came out were probably turned off.
Yeah, I mean, there's no likable character.
No.
I mean, maybe you could make the argument for Tobin, maybe the ex-priest. Yeah. But not really. There's no hero. There's no really good people in the novel at all. And it's just relentlessly violent and nihilistic at all times.
Yes. I mean, our protagonist is called the Kid. Never even get a name from him. McCarthy just hates naming his protagonists for some reason. Now he has named other protagonists. It is funny. I did read All the Pretty Horses earlier this year, and man, what a tonal shift from this, because this is like really dark and bleak and disgusting. And I won't pretend that All the Pretty Horses is a ride in the park, but definitely not as bleak as this novel.
It's hopeful. I haven't read All the Pretty Horses or watched a movie in a very long time, but when I remember, there's some hope to it. And all of his books have at least a little bit. And actually, I will say that there is like a tinge of hope in Blood Meridian too. A tinge of hope. Just a very small sliver of light. But No Country for Old Men, while isn't as bleak, it's very similar outlook on life. You know, like, you know, fate is unavoidable, you're dead, you know, once you make a choice, it's, you know, that kind of thing. But there are a couple of similarities. But his other works, yeah, they're a little bit, well, I mean, like Child of God's pretty dark, Outer Dark is pretty dark. But like the road ends on a hopeful note.
Yeah.
You know,
I'd say The Road is his most hopeful novel, probably. I mean, he likes dark stuff. Now I like dark stuff, so.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, he just I think he's just extremely. I mean, God, did you see The Counselor?
I have not, but I've heard of it. I know it's kind of. I know it's kind of like. It's kind of a mixed bag. It's a polarizing experience, apparently.
It is. Watch the director's cut. I absolutely love it. I think it's one of Ridley Scott's best. But McCarthy wrote the script. You know, and it's very similar. That just relentless, bleak. Like once you make a choice, that's it. You know, you're a victim of your choices.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, with you know, and you know, now they're fine. Well, they say it. I'll believe it when I see it. But they're saying they're going to do the movie.
Yeah, no, I remember we talked a while back, and you were just like, they're not going to make that shit into a movie. And then they said they're going to, and I'm like, oh, you know.
And it's and it's Hillcoat too, which I'm kind of, I think, if anybody could do it, I would have maybe chosen somebody different, but I do think Hillcoat has the chops.
I guess it's better than James Franco.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, you know, if you get a chance, I don't know if we talked about this, but you can watch his test footage.
I've seen some of it. It was really weird.
Yeah, well, yeah, but like Scott Glenn is playing Tobin, you know, and Mark Pellegrino from Supernatural, he plays Lucifer,
which is a good choice, I think.
He's playing the judge, yeah. So, yeah, I think I'll be interested to see the casting, and his approach, like the the scene, I know we're kind of jumping around a little bit, but just the scene where the judge teaches them how to make gunpowder from brimstone.
Yeah.
It, like, to me, like, if you can't nail that scene, you should not be directing this film, because that is the scene. I mean, out of that scene, and in the end when things go awry and they're at the well,
Uh-huh.
and the kid finally, like, basically, like, embraces that he himself is a killer. Those two scenes are like the most two important
Yeah, it's
in the whole narrative to me.
but yeah, that's the thing about Blood Meridian. Like, God, where do you start when you talk about this damn thing? Because it's like, now 352 pages, like I said, because I counted the pages last night on my copy. It's well, okay, it's about a guy called the Kid. He's from Tennessee. He is pale and thin, according to the narrative. And that's about the most we get. He doesn't know how to read, and that always pisses me off, because I'm super about, like, literacy, and everyone should be able to read, and it's terrible. So, yeah. Kid doesn't really have much of a chance. He runs off, gets involved in the Mexican-American War. That goes south pretty quickly. And then he ends up going with the Glanton Gang, which was a real thing. Which is even more terrifying considering that Judge Holden was actually a real person, though he's probably not like he is in this.
Highly doubtful.
Hopefully. But yeah, it's like, why do you think so many people, including us, are interested in Blood Meridian? Like what people, like, this book should not be as, like, great as it is. I mean, it's about violent and disgusting people doing violent and disgusting things, So, what do you think?
I think it's a couple of things. I think it's the same thing. Why do people like Unforgiven so much?
Well, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because it's the anti-Western.
Yeah.
I think that Blood Meridian is not the anti-Western; it's the apocalyptic Western. There's a theme in Blood Meridian that is one of my favorite themes that has been explored in a couple of other, like, movies and shows and stuff like that, and that's basically, like, the encroachment of civilization, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, Blood Meridian is essentially right at the precipice where, like, America was trying to become civilized, right? And, like, all of these outlaw ways were kind of getting pushed to the side, and these people being hunted down, and people are trying to carve out, their own place in the world, trying to ignore civility and, like, law and politics and order.
So I'm guessing we're a big Deadwood fan.
Deadwood is one of them. Black Sails is another one. Mm-hmm. And of course the Wild Bunch,
Well, yeah, I love the Wild Bunch.
But that theme specifically of like the protagonists themselves are all kind of like relics of the world before.
Uh-huh.
And modern America, modern civilization is being pressed upon them, and they're fighting back violently.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think what McCarthy is saying with that is, like, he's talking about that partially. He's also talking about how, like, manifest destiny was like an evil thing, right? Like,
really? I didn't know that.
Well, but think about how it's taught in school, though.
Well, yeah.
I mean, think about how American history is taught in school. It's very romanticized.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think this was, especially during the 80s, right? I mean, we're getting a little bit better at recognizing things. But I think this was his way of saying.
Earlier. I knew it was romanticized. Bit.
But I think that I think this was his way of basically saying, like, look at who we are, look at what we've done.
Mm-hmm.
But then also there's a lot of just, I don't know. To me, it's a myth. It's very Dante's Inferno. It's very the kid going through.
I agree. I agree that it's very mythic. Again, I'm reminded a lot of Heart of Darkness, which is similar, like, mythic, except it's in Africa, not the American West.
But both involve journeys.
Yes.
Where the journey is very central to the story as they're going through their various crucibles or their various versions of hell. Mm-hmm. I think for the kid, the first time that I felt that way as a reader. I mean, like the first couple of chapters, there's a lot of violence, but it's just kind of like, I don't know, like for me, I just like, okay, they're thugs, okay.
Yeah.
But when he falls in with the regulars and they get massacred by the Indians, that is like the first, in my opinion, like the true scene of like terror and absolute like jaw-dropping violence. Like, scalping them, raping them.
Yeah.
Just one of the Indians is wearing a blood-spattered wedding dress.
Oh my god! Yeah.
Just the way he did, and that partially why it would never get like his treatment of Native Americans is, they're not people. In the way he writes them, It just to me, I had never seen, like, you see certain movies and things and the way like Native Americans are portrayed. He just takes it. I was just shocked. My jaw just fell. I just fell on the floor. I was like, oh my, just how violent, shockingly violent that entire scene is just, it's one of the scariest things I've ever read.
I mean, it's pretty chaotic. The violence in this is really chaotic. I've met some people, like, there are people I respect who don't like this book, and it's one of those. It's kind of like the Boys comic book. I can understand why someone might be turned off, though there's differing reasons. Blood Meridian, right. It's like, violence, the archaic. I don't want to say the prose is archaic, but it's very interesting.
It's biblical.
Yes.
It's how I would describe it. I mean, he uses words like shibboleth and centroid.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very esoteric. It's arcane. I'd say it's more arcane and almost mystical than it, I mean, it's just literally like from the second you follow the kid, you are literally stepping into this alien nightmare, and it just never stops. Like that's the thing. That's the part that I think that people really can't handle, is that it just there's no respite. You never get to catch your breath. It's literally violence and death for 352 pages. That's it.
Oh my gosh, yeah. It's again, I mean, like, it's one of those books, like, I've heard people who don't like it, and I get why you might not like it, because it's very much like the plot is very ambling, and it kind of meanders a bit, and a lot of violence. It's very disconcerting. I mean, there's a part where the judge literally picks up some puppies and then just dumps them over.
Dumps them into the river.
Because, I can see how some people are like, okay, like, this is just cartoon now.
It's kind of like reading like Garth Ennis comics, like you mentioned, but like Preacher and all that. Like that stuff it just has not aged well, even though it's been done well in art, in modern times. But I think the reason Blood Meridian gets a pass from most people, you're right, it's definitely not for everybody. McCarthy's not for everybody. I mean, he's bleak. Yeah. It is dense. Like you say, it rambles. I mean, like how many times in the text do the words "they rode on" appear?
Oh, like look! Hold on. Look at that. No, like, syntax or nothing.
Yeah, he doesn't use quotation marks, but the phrase "they rode on" is probably in those 300 pages like 100 times.
Yeah, it's like a drinking game. You'll probably
it's just like right. They rode on. Like literally, if you look up Blood Meridian merchandise, like T-shirts and stuff, one of them is "they rode on." Like I have I don't know if you've seen. I put it on Facebook. I should have worn it, but I was just getting home from work today. But I have. Glanton and the kid, and Holden and Toadvine.
Yeah, I think I have seen that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's just, and it's also just like nightmarish, and like it really gets. I mean, it really doesn't get going until he gets with the scalp hunters, obviously, but then it becomes this kind of like 4-way dance, right? Mm-hmm. So. The scalp hunters are full of colorful characters, and there's a lot of them. The white Johnson, the black Johnson.
Yeah, I wrote down all the names of the important people, like Judge Holden, the kid, Glanton, Toadvine,
right.
Tobin.
So like Toadvine and like Bathcat. The Bathcat is the Van Diemen Lander. They're kind of just like wild. Like the real 4-way dance is Glanton, the kid, Tobin, and the judge. Right. Yeah. That's like really the 4 like principles. And so you have these 4 different, so like the judge and Tobin are basically opposite sides of the same coin, right? Like God and the devil. If you choose to interpret it that way, good and evil, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, it's always something that throws me off. I'm like, how did Tobin get involved with these maniacs? You know,
right,
he
because
seems like a decent guy, you know, and he's like he's just going along.
One of my theories is that he's gay, and that is part of it, or perhaps even a pedophile. Because of his treatment of the kid. I've read it. I don't necessarily prescribe to it, but my theory is he just was disgraced for something and fell on hard times, ended up with them. Because he's, McCarthy's trying to say, like, this could happen to anybody. But if you take Tobin and the judge, they're kind of like God and devil, good and evil, whatever you want to call it. And then like the kid and Glanton are basically like the same person at just different points in their life. It's the kid.
Oh, it's that thing you mentioned in Modern Ocean.
Right. It's very, very similar kind of thing because they both have a very like if you notice whenever the kid talks, it's very short.
Mm-hmm.
Like his sentences are very short.
Yeah, like he always says like, "It ain't worth a damn," or "You ain't
right."
Nothing.
It's all right. "You ain't nothing" is one of my favorite lines because it's like he's always defiant because he's McCarthy's saying, "Look at what we as Americans are." Like we're sitting there like with staring death in the face, like "You ain't nothing," Whereas like Glanton, like one of the funniest lines in the book that cracks me up every time is when they're buying the pistols.
Yeah.
And the guy, and he's talking, 50 a gun.
Yeah.
And Glanton's like, "I'm not paying that." And the guy looks at me and goes, "Well, how much is your life worth, sir?" And Glanton goes, "In Texas, $500. It just cracks me up. But that's very much similar. Like that's something the kid would say as an older gentleman.
Yeah.
Think about both of their deaths, right? Like you have Glanton as he's
hacked
he's
to death, and he's just like, "Hack away!" I'm not gonna say the
we uses a racial slur, but whereas the kid is "You ain't nothing." It's very but it's that four-way dance between them as they kind of bounce around, so just
it's like,
killing.
It's like Glanton fell more under the judge's sway, and and the kid fell. Because it's odd about the kid, he's not a complete psychopath. Like,
correct.
He does have some scruples.
That is why the well is such an important scene, because at that point when I'm talking about the well, this is like when they're on the run from the Indians, like everything has gone bad at the ferry, and it's like Tobin's been like shot in the neck, and it's like him and Toadvine and the kid. And like this is like they haven't run into the judge at the creek bed yet, where like there's that showdown. Where there's that showdown. It's right before that where they're at the well because that's where they meet Toadvine, and the Indians start coming and they only have one pistol, and the kid gets the pistol and he takes a knee and he literally is like one-shotting, killing these dudes, like shooting them in the head like repeatedly. And Toadvine whispers to Tobin, he's like, "Oh, he's a dead eye, ain't he?" And it's like, and in that moment, it's like that is when the kid kind of embraces all of it.
I thought the kid and Toadvine were more similar, but
elements of the wildness.
Like they're both clearly
they're brothers,
not good guys, but they do have scruples. It's not like other people's, but they do have them.
Right. Well, and they're very much like an older and a younger brother, siblings.
Yeah.
Like especially their first meeting where they're beating the crap at each other in the mud.
Yeah.
I mean that's like two brothers right there. Like get out of my way. No, you get out of my way. Let's fight about it.
And then they're like drinking like 5 minutes later. Or he lets him stay with him or something. Oh,
exactly. Man. Exactly. So
what were you gonna say?
I'm just saying. So but for me that's really like there's just so many like it's hard to really talk about the plot because you're right. The plot is very simple. It's just these guys running around killing people, but it's the themes and the scenes that are strung together that make the volcano scene is amazing. The scene at the well I've already described. The scene with the Mexican family of performers and he does the tarot cards for them. Don't
they kill them all if I remember right?
Yes, but it's not like explicit. I don't remember the exact phrasing, but if I remember correctly, it's like implied but it's not necessarily like.
Mike, isn't that the one where Toadvine gets pissed off at the judge and he points the gun at his head?
Yes, and then that's also because that's part of when the judge is drawing the pictures, and then he's talking about like nothing exists without my permission. I'm probably mangling that a little bit, but and then of course like the climatic, the ending scene in the bar where Holden gives that amazing speech about being a true dancer, and war is God and nobility called into question, and who is the true dancer? The kid, you ain't nothing. Just
dumb animal can dance.
Yeah. It's just such a trip. I mean,
and it's dreamlike.
It is exactly. It's like a half dream, half nightmare.
I wouldn't have been surprised if the story ended and the kid just woke up. He's like, "What the fuck? What did I eat?"
but the kind of interesting thing about that, is the ending, is that last half page of prose, where the kid is presumably dead. We don't know for certain, but they open up the latrine, and he's the guy's like, my God, because like we assume the judge has most likely probably raped him and killed him. I mean that is the judge's MO. I mean,
yeah, no.
But that next kind of epilogue, and it's just the two guys going across the plain, digging the holes for the fence, and then dropping the fire into the hole. And that dovetails very good, very, very, very well with the ending of No Country for Old Men, where the sheriff is describing the dream about carrying the fire for his father. And I think that also, I like to use a phrase from True Detective, like the light is winning. I say that a lot.
Yeah.
And like, I think that's kind of, I think that's what McCarthy's really trying to say, is like, evil is everywhere. You're never going to get rid of it. It's all about what you do. It's all about carrying the fire. And so I think that's why I really like that kind of neat touch on the end of Blood Meridian, because it's like, look upon my works in despair, but also don't forget that there is hope, even very small, which very, very small. So yeah, I mean, it's just a very deep novel for 352 pages. I mean, It is deeper. It's deeper than, novels that are 1,000 pages.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's again, Cormac McCarthy, one of the probably best writers of generation. Anyway, in my opinion,
definitely of our lifetime, without a doubt. And yeah. I mean, like, for anybody that's listening to this and that wants to be a writer, like, you don't have to like McCarthy, but read him and just think about how long it took him to make those sentences, to choose those words. I mean, it's absolutely like his ex-wife, when he wrote Suttree.
I'm actually gonna read that soon.
You'll like it. It's very good. But when he wrote it, it was done on a typewriter. Mm-hmm. His wife said she typed 15 drafts of the novel before they sent it off.
Oh my God!
Or his ex-wife, excuse me. I was like, which probably led to her becoming an ex. But
I know that Cormac was one of those guys, didn't get a job. He was gonna make it with writing, and that probably pissed a lot of people off.
Yeah, he basically survived on grants from local colleges for writing. And just struck out, very similar to Stephen King, actually. Like, struck out 100 times, and then finally got lucky, and then just, But with McCarthy, as opposed to King, McCarthy never really got mainstream, other than people recognizing adaptations. Anybody on the street, you say, who's Stephen King? They're gonna be like, oh, it's the horror guy. You say, who Cormac McCarthy? They're gonna be like, who? But if you say No Country for Old Men, they'll be like, oh, the guy with the haircut. Yeah, I've seen that. So he's definitely not for everybody, and I don't even say that to sound smarmy or smart or anything. It's it's just stuff.
It's true, man.
It's difficult. It's difficult. I honestly don't think I could actually read it. I don't think I would have the patience to physically read it, as opposed to listening to it. I do audiobooks. That's kind of my thing.
That's fair, man. But, it's tough nowadays.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I wanted to keep some kind of structure with this. I just kind of came up with some questions I thought we could discuss. about the book. Just some I've had over the years, and because a lot of this novel is up to interpretation, admittedly. And some people might not like that. I do. If our enjoyment of Shane Carruth says anything, we both like discussing questions and theorizing. But I think it's but yeah, no. First one I got, and I guess we already kind of talked about this. But what is Blood Meridian about?
I think like on the surface, like we said, it's about this journey of this unnamed protagonist, the kid, who falls in with these scalp hunters towards the end of the Wild West era of American history. Like that's on the surface. Underneath it, I think it's really about like the violence that America is built upon, our culture of violence. I think it is about the forces of good and evil, and it is entirely up to you as a person how you define good and evil, if it's religious or not, whatever, God, devil, concepts of good and evil, how they exist and walk amongst us as mortals. And I think a lot of it is really about masculinity and what it means to be a man. I think it's about finding a sense of morality when there is no morality. And I think it's very much about how it's disenchanting the violence. It's showing you as a reader that violence is not something to be sitting in the theater watching Sylvester Stallone or Arnold Schwarzenegger kill 100 guys. It's real, it's visceral, it's terrifying. Because remember, this came out in the 80s, in 1985. So I think that's kind of thematic. I could go on for people, I literally have a book, like somebody's college thesis on this book.
It's a good book to write a thesis on.
Yeah. I actually have two. I actually have two books now. I think about it, but my point is there are books about this book.
Yeah.
So we're never gonna we're gonna barely scratch the surface with our conversation today. So please, the big thing you have to take away is this book is really what you make of it. That is the biggest part of it. I would be very curious to hear what folks in other countries think of this book.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I would be very. My friend that recently read it. She's in England.
Oh.
And she found it fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. But I didn't really press. I should have before doing this. I didn't really think about it. But yeah, I'm curious what folks who don't know a lot about American history, but do because Americans do kind of have a reputation globally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're
sometimes
like
true, sometimes not.
We have a bad habit of rubbing people the wrong way.
we really do at all times. We like our freedom. We don't like being told what to do. Yeah, I'd be curious to know what folks in other countries think of this novel.
For me, I would say Blood Meridian is a treatise on the nature of evil, violence, and depravity. In less pretentious talk, it's a exploration of really evil. It's an exploration of evil, I think, in all of its complexity. It's showing, well, it's not quite as black and white as some people might think. I think so.
Well,
and there's also those themes you brought up about the encroachment of civilization, but that's general. It's kind of like, again, Heart of Darkness. It's about how there's evil inside everybody and how evil influences people, I guess. It's hard to explain. But,
and evil's easy.
Yes.
Right? Greed is easy.
Yes.
And especially when you think about an environment such as when this novel takes place, there's no law, there's no order.
Yeah. And even when they go into towns, they're treated as heroes. It's like, I'm like, what does that say? Oh, something happened, or
yeah, you're good. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
But yeah, um, I think that lawlessness is another important thing that we haven't really talked about a lot,
Yeah,
actually.
no, I'd agree with that.
Like the lack, because there really is no law. I mean, like, even when characters within the novel find themselves in jail, it's only temporary.
Yeah.
They cheat or buy or break their way out. Really, the only form of actual law is execution.
Yeah.
Usually by hanging for many members of the gang.
Like Toadvine, he has horse thief on his head. Or not the actual words, but HT on his head.
Yep.
His ears are gone.
Yep. And I believe that
decadent book. That's a good word for it.
Yes, very. It's almost like Grand Guignol level of violence, but it's got like an opulence to it. It's got this kind of very like. I think people are gonna kind of laugh when I say this, but like I think Scorsese actually would have done an interesting take on this.
Oh wow! I've always wanted to see his take on a western. I guess we'll get it with Killers on the Flower Moon, which takes place in my home state, which I'm very happy about.
I'm reading that book now, actually.
Oh man, I still need to read it. I lent it to my aunt, and she still hasn't given it back to me. So yeah, one day.
So I'm enjoying it. I'm really excited for the movie.
But yeah, no, I think Blood Meridian is about evil, to keep it simple.
Right. Absolutely.
And its alluring influence on people, as well as violence and depravity and it's all the cyclical nature of violence, I guess, is a good way, and how violence often births violence. If that makes sense at all.
No. I'm just thinking through like examples of what you're telling me. Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, like how the circumstances of the kid's birth.
Yeah, his mom dies.
And how the father resents him and beats him and all that kind of stuff. And
doesn't even teach him how to read out of spite, which that just pisses me off.
So, right. But I think it's an important quality for the story, though, because it's that kind of willful ignorance that McCarthy's talking about, that us Americans all have one way or another. We're very willfully ignorant with certain things that we believe in, even when faced with evidence that they are not true or incorrect. And I think that goes hand in hand with lawlessness and the perception of freedom. And I think he's kind of toying with you, the reader, by saying like, oh, well, they're Americans, they're free. Of course they have free, but are they? I mean, remember what Tobin says when he says that every member of the scalp hunters ran into Holden.
Yeah, that's something I hope to discuss.
Okay, all right, we'll stop. Keep going.
I guess my next question is about the kid. Why do you think he's not named? I have some theories, but I'm curious to hear what you think on this. Or if you think
okay, I have a couple of theories. The first one is that he doesn't matter in the context of the story, as far as he's like almost like a passive lens through which we watch the story unfold. And so I think keeping him generic like that, he's allowing you. I mean, put it this way. Like, I mean, I'm not sure I even cared if the kid lived or died.
Yeah.
And I think that's a psychological choice, right? If he had a name, because it's just like in movies where the serial killer kidnaps somebody and they have the mom on the TV and the mom keeps using the person's name and they're like, why are they doing that? It's like, well, they use the name, it makes him an object. It's harder for them to cut her up or whatever. It makes him a person, not an object. And so I think maybe that was a psychological choice on his angle.
Yeah.
I think the other part of it, though, is that I keep coming back to this whole, because it is very much about America. Like, this is very much about like who we are as a people and where we came from. And I think what he's trying to say, partially, he's kind of challenging that notion of pull yourself up by your bootstraps, like,
yeah.
the American dream. I think he's challenging that with Blood, and he's saying, well, look at this kid with no name, can't read, And look at him pulling himself up, except for he's not pulling himself up by his bootstraps. He's pulling himself up by scalps and violence.
Yeah.
You know.
Um,
I'm not trying to get like super political. I don't really care about that.
Yeah,
no. It's more like he's just critiquing the idea of the American dream.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah. My theory is kind of similar, but mine's sort of, he could be anybody. Like, he could be you. He could be me. In the right context.
Sure, exactly. Like, very similar. How did Tobin end up with them, right? Anybody could have a bad day.
Yeah.
And then but that ties in well with what you said earlier about how evil's in everyone.
Yeah.
And then that ties in with what I was saying about lawlessness. So if you have all of these elements put together, right,
it makes a whole.
is it right? And is it that unfeasible that like this group of mass murdering psychopaths could be a thing? No, it's not. It's very feasible.
Yeah, but I think the kid's interesting because, like I said earlier, and I'll talk more about this when we get more into the questions. But the kid isn't quite as depraved as everyone else is. Not that he has like morality or anything, but there's like he doesn't go that far, I guess.
He does not go that far until the end at the well. That is the first time he kills with like hate in his heart, to use the dark tower. Like you're absolutely right. Like even in the first early chapters, he never really tries to kill anyone. Now does he get in fights and start stuff like when he breaks the bottles over the guy's head?
He's like sweeping the guy's like, I ain't giving you shit, and he's like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, he's a ruffian, but he's not a killer, or not truly. I think like in the ambush with the Indians, I think he does kill a few like in self defense, but he's like underneath the dying horse, like firing his rifle, like it's just self defense,
And he is capable of being, I don't want to say kind, but nice to people, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I mean, like he runs across the guys that leave him the knife and the beans.
Mm-hmm. Or the old man who thinks
who tries to rape him in the middle of the night. Yeah,
he doesn't kill him, but I'll put it this way: like he doesn't try to kill him or anything. He just is like, fuck this, I'm out of here.
Right. Well, and I think that was a very like almost kind of, I don't want to use the word like biblical, but like that's what snaps into my head, a very like kind of parable kind of thing where like he's confronted with this, what would a child think a demon is, right?
Yeah.
Someone trying to hurt their body and do something terrible that can never be taken back. And he wakes up and it's like a living nightmare and he just runs out, into the middle, and it's like in that instance, he really is a kid. Mm-hmm. That's where he's like reduced down to like his thematic, like, yep, he's literally just a terrified little boy.
So I thought it wasn't clear if that old man was gonna like rape him or anything.
I mean, it's left to your interpretation, but like he wakes up in the middle of the night and the guy's like over top of him. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, and another like supporting.
I don't mean to laugh. Rape is not funny, but you get what I mean. It's just like
no, absolutely. But another supporting thing too is, I mean, think about it in the context of Blood Meridian. What else could it have been?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's no light.
There's so much depravity in this book.
Yeah,
why
I mean,
not
it's just. Yeah, it's just. I mean, that's where I went immediately because again, I think he's trying to show what is the thing that would be the scariest thing for this kid to encounter, and like why he would let him go. Why he wouldn't try and harm him, and and just ran. Because ultimately, like the kid is really only afraid of like that old man in the hut. And the judge.
Yeah.
And so I think it's signifying, because if you think about it in the terms of if the judge is like supernatural, right? Which I'm sure this is one of your questions, but if he is, or whatever he is, right? If he is the devil, then he knows that night with that old man was probably the scariest thing that's ever happened to the kid. Of course, that's how he kills him in the end, to make him experience the most fear and terror possible. And so
now that is. Now, I will say, this leads me to my next question about the man, the myth, Judge Holden for 2024. Judge Holden. A terrifying, gigantic man baby who is very good at a lot of things. So I guess my question is sort of like just a moment in the story, but we first meet him at a revival meeting, and he tells a bunch of people, like, this priest was, he was canoodling with a goat.
Yeah, I love that. I love that passage because the crowd like gasps, and he's like, and like the way he writes it, it's like the judge looked at the woman. Yes, ma'am. I said goat.
Yeah.
I love the way he writes that because it's so simple, but you get it immediately. You know?
Yeah. No. It's
God, it's so funny.
He's just like, yes, ma'am. I said a goat, and he's all like, lies, lies. And poor
and then
guy. And then one of them shouts, "Let's hang the turd."
Right. And then like later at the bar, they're like buying him drinks, and he's like, "Where'd you run up on that guy?" And he's like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Well, how do you know all that stuff?" And he's like, "I never met him before in my life."
Which that brings me to my question though: why did the judge do that? Or why do you think?
Because one, because the guy clearly is a charlatan, right? The preacher, I mean. But I think two,
was
because
that true though?
No, I don't think what he was saying was true about the goat, but I think the guy was like like any tent revival huckster. He was probably taking people for their money and stuff. But I think there's a couple of reasons that the judge did that. One is that because to him the only religion is war, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's really the only thing like worth worshiping is the letting of blood.
Yeah,
that's like the pure. It's almost like prehistoric.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's like almost like an ancient kind of god, like an ancient god of like cavemen or whatever. So I think in part of it is that he's destroying any other religion as a means to propagate war. And with Tobin, the reason I think he allows him to live is because he's trying to like corrupt him and by showing him the futility of his religion by virtue of what they're doing. Like every day, like Tobin, look at me, look at what I'm doing. But I think the other thing that you have to remember, though, that's very important for that scene is he did it in front of the kid. And this goes back to what we hinted at, where like every single member of the gang had a run-in. Mm-hmm. So why? So then the question is why would this be pertinent or significant specifically to the kid?
That again, like I said, that does bring me to one of my questions later. But
yep. Yeah.
But I guess that leads to my question about what is Judge Holden? Like, I know that's probably a very deep philosophical question. And also, what is he a judge of? Now, I have some theories on this, but I want to hear what you have to say first.
Oh, okay. What is he? I think he is the personification of evil.
Yeah.
Violence. Right. Like, I don't think he's like demonic, like in the biblical sense. I think that he is McCarthy's notion that these things, evil like this, have existed in men before creation, before the creation of time itself. Evil has always been here. Violence has always been here. Our propensity for it has always been here. And so I think Holden is really just a personification of that, a living totem of that ideal. What is he the judge of? He's the judge of man. He's the judge of everything. He's the judge of, do you get to live? He's the judge of, what is right and wrong.
There was that hilarious bit where kids pointing the gun at him, and he's like, "You ain't gonna do it," and then he starts like talking about all this shit about like the law, and like, and that there was this one conversation I watched from friends of mine where they're like, do these guys even know what the fuck he's talking about?
where they're trapped by the river, and like he goes off about torts for like 2 hours. Yeah, that is a great scene. I forgot about that. That's really good. Yeah. So yeah, that's my theory on him.
Yeah, no, I agree. On the one thing, I wasn't entirely sure what he's a judge of, unless he's like some god figure. Which, if that's the case, that's fucking terrifying. But, what is he? Yeah. He's like the personification of violence, mayhem, death, evil, all that stuff.
I think the reason that he's called the judge, aside from being a god that judges or a force that judges, is that if you think about it in the context of people are more likely to obey you and allow you to do evil things if you're wearing a uniform, right?
Yeah.
Because that signifies power, and I'm not just talking about police. I'm just saying in general, if you have some kind of title or authority, people are more likely to let you do things, right? And so I think that's also important, because how many times is he referred to in the text as the judge?
Numerous times.
As opposed to Judge Holden. Most of the time it's the judge.
Yeah.
And I think that's why, because he's basically making a statement that this guy has kind of created a position of authority that is never even defined, and people just let him do whatever the hell he wants.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's like he's very odd. He's bald. He has no hair anywhere, and he's very good at a lot of things. Like, he can fiddle. He can make gunpowder out of piss.
He can draw.
He knows about the law, religion, all sorts of stuff.
I think the lack of the hair and that kind, like the big feature, goes with my theory of kind of him being almost like a Cro-Magnon, like representative of like ancient, religion, like ancient, like if you think of like almost like Mesopotamian, like Ghostbusters style, blood ritual sacrifice stuff.
Oh yeah.
But it goes hand in hand with the idea that he's this big kind of like hulking, like almost prehistoric like specimen.
It's like either that or Judge Holden literally is the devil.
Right, but I don't know. McCarthy would never tell us, even if he was alive. But I don't think that's clever enough for McCarthy. That's my theory. I think it's way more insidious than just him being like a representation of Satan.
This kind of leads my next question. What does the judge want?
I think the judge wants endless violence, endless war, endless destruction. I think he wants the kind of, like, you can't even really, like, one of the things that I think gets said a lot about this book, or like misconstrued, is that he doesn't corrupt the scalp hunters. They're already living in degradation. They're already murderers.
That does lead me to my next question, but I see what you're getting at.
All he's doing is like pouring gasoline on the fire.
Yeah. Yeah, and but yeah, I agree. I think he wants chaos. He wants death. He basically just evil.
Well, and if you think about it, he
wants to expose the evil in other people.
Yes, and make them embrace it. And it's interesting, and this is why your point about the kid is so important, because the kid never truly embraces the evil side of him. Even when he embraces the fact that he's a killer at the well, he's doing it in self-defense. He's really good at it. And that's what the judge wants from the kid. Like, it's kind of like semi-sexual, if you will, but not really. No, I mean, if you read the book in the context, there's a lot of sexual tension between the two of them throughout the novel.
Yeah.
But the point is it's really what the judge covets about the kid, what like turns him on, if you will, is the fact that he is a perfect killer, and he won't go there.
Yeah.
And so the judge is like, I want what I can't have.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I remember when you going back to what does the judge want. I remember I read somewhere. I was actually on Quora, because I'm on Quora a lot now. I like writing answers on there. There was one guy who said that Judge Holden does not care for what he described as moral fence sitters. And that's kind of a thing that happens in McCarthy a lot. You see it in No Country for Old Men with Llewellyn. And in this, you could say with the kid. Because, sure, he didn't fully embrace that, but does that make him good?
Right. He wants commitment to damnation.
Yes.
Very much so.
And I think that's why. And then that made me think. I'm like, wait a minute. That's why he's the judge. He wants to judge that part of.
I like it. I like it. Very, very much so. I mean, and that's kind of where I was. I mean, he's literally judging you. He's judging you, the reader. You're reading this. You're reading this right now. Do you ever watch the TV show The Shield? You ever seen that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That the last episode of that show, very much like this. Like, you are taken to task as a viewer. You have been watching this show for 7 seasons. You have watched them break the law, murder people, do all this terrible thing, and now you're being held accountable. Very similar.
Yep. But yeah, no, the judge. Yeah, it's like you said. He wants commitment to evil, pretty much, because he's very surprisingly very black and white when it comes to morality. There is no gray area for him. You're either
no, and I mean
you're either good per se or you're evil.
Well, I think I would go a step further and say I think he believes that no one is actually good, and that's his mission. I mean, anything that is good in the world, he stamps out. He throws those puppies he drowns those puppies, not because they're cute, but because they literally don't know evil.
Is that why you think he gets the idiot later? I'm curious why he takes the idiot as like a pet. I don't want to call him an idiot. That sounds bad, but that's what he's calling the story.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. Again, like, I think it gets into there is a sexual component there. I know it sounds like a broken record, but it is a big.
That's fair. I mean, the judge is a deviant, so
right. I think that's it. I think it's more him doing that in front of all of them and being like, "And what are you going to do about it? You're letting me do this. You're letting me do this." Like, I really think that is the big part of it. I
don't mean to laugh.
No.
It's like there's almost an absurdity when you put it that way.
Absolutely. But there is an absurdity to it, and I think that's a big part of what he's saying. I mean, he's literally. I mean, if you look at like just modern day, like how much stuff is revered that is terrible. Like that's kind of what he's saying is like the judge is like, I'm not here because like I'm some like super demon that stepped out of hell. I'm here because you're letting me be here. Any of those guys could have pulled a trigger on him at any point.
Yeah, but that is he human though? That's
well,
the thing.
That's like the usual suspects. Like do you shoot the devil in the back? What happens if you miss? That's part of it because he's created this mystique. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. I mean, he may be supernatural, but the point is even the kid or even Tobin could have taken him out, and they were scared.
And for good reason. He's pretty terrifying.
Oh, I mean, he's terrifying. But I think that's literally part. And so when he takes the idiot, as the pet, I think it's just more. It's very absurd. It's very parading. Like, and look what I'm doing, and there's nothing you can do about it because now because. In the narrative, this is when they're at the ferry, when this starts. Yeah. And so in his mind, he's like, oh, well, we're not leaving here alive, or most of us are not leaving here alive because the judge is smart.
I love how the judge just like, that's kind of another side question. Why do you think he gets naked a lot? Because he has he has a habit of just like stripping in the nude and just hanging out with the boys.
Because think about how long cavemen lived in caves without clothes.
Yeah.
Do
you think it's just he doesn't give a fuck, or
I think it's yet another symbolic part of that ancient vibe of that ancient because when are you most vulnerable, right? When you're naked.
Yeah.
Right. But think about also when you are your most primal when you're naked, right? Mm. Animals don't wear clothing.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but yeah, no. Again, this is sort of just like kind of I was watching a conversation with some friends of mine, and they who also read this book, and one of the guys is actually from Africa, which is funny that you mentioned. No, he's from Nigeria. Africa's not a country, but but you get what I mean. Yeah, he loved it, but yeah, or he admires the novel. I'll put it that way. And one of the guys, asked. I actually had him on my podcast yesterday. He said, "Do these fucking guys know what the hell the judge is talking about? Because it's like they're fucking. Because it's like he's saying all these flowery languages, making all these waxing poetic about how war is God, and there's just like these haggard, degraded, disgusting pieces of shit sitting there, and I bet they're just like, what the fuck is he talking about?"
Well, I mean, and again, that I think that goes very nicely with that theme of, no, of course they don't know what he's saying, but they're letting him say it, and they're letting him say it with authority. And I think that's the biggest part, is of course they don't get half of the poetic stuff. Maybe Tobin does, and I honestly think most of the time when he's talking, it is to Tobin, because it's that philosophical duel, but no, definitely not. Without a doubt.
Yeah, that brings to my question, which we already kind of touched upon. Do you think that the judge's influence makes the men, the scalp hunters, become more savage as the novel goes along? Or like, why do you think like they? Because Tobin says he's like we've seen that, everyone here's seen that scoundrel one point or another, but I'm wondering why. Why did he do that? Did he choose them? Was it like
yes.
some like almost like God like this sort of perverted God choosing Abraham to go to the promised land or some shit like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think they were chosen as a sacrifice. Absolutely. I think that's the entire point.
But
I think
sacrifice to what?
To the force that the judge represents. Like, they are literally like a sacrifice, because like as civilization is encroaching, right? And as war becomes dishonored, and there's only one true dancer, that true dancer needs blood. I need my sacrifices, So I think they were literally, I think that's the whole point of the story, is that the scalp hunters are the sacrifice to that primal viciousness, that god of war, that god of blood, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, absolutely. Because they all, like I said, like the judge is just pouring gas on the fire. That's literally it. And if you think about it, it's like he runs into each of them beforehand so they know him, and then he gains their trust when he teaches them how to make the gunpowder. Right? That's when he basically becomes the leader. I mean, even though Glanton is, air quotes, the leader, it's really the judge.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I was about to say Glanton ain't the leader. The judge is.
Yeah.
So this is sort of a thing by the end of the book. Why do you think the judge targets the kid and Tobin by the end of the story?
Well, we talked about this a little. I think I specifically targets the kid because the kid won't embrace his nature, and that's what the judge craves. That's what that's what the judge needs. So that is very clear to me.
Well, I agree. Yeah.
With Tobin, I think it's more he's mocking him. He's wants to hurt him. He wants to. It's kind of like, think of it. Actually, you know what? It's exactly the same thing as what he did with the goat preacher. He wants to humiliate Tobin. He doesn't want to necessarily kill him. He wants to see him broken before the judge's god of whatever, to show him that his little biblical god is nothing.
Yeah, I mean, do you think Tobin is like the moral one? I use that very loosely.
Absolutely.
Because he's the only one who's like, yo, this dude's whack. And he's telling the kid, shoot this motherfucker.
Right. And I mean, the only time, I mean, unless I'm forgetting something, the only time that Tobin really gets violent is against the judge.
Yeah. It's almost
like there
becomes that competing philosophy,
Yeah, he's never really involved in all the like scalpings and like the wanton murder and stuff like that. I mean, he's complicit. I'm not saying he's innocent. Don't get me wrong. He's complicit. He let it happen. But he's not out there shooting, giant rifle pistols and scalping people.
Doesn't have a gigantic cannon blowing away.
Right. Making cats evaporate. Yeah. That whole scene is crazy. But yeah, I mean, he's still complicit. But yeah, I the only time that Tobin actually like advocates for violence is telling the kid to kill the judge.
Yeah, I mean, and that kind of brings me towards the end of the story. Why do you think the kid, or the man by this point, why do you think the judge goes after him? Because I do have a theory, but
I want to hear tell me yours first this time. Tell me.
all right.
Curious.
I think the judge, or we've kind of already discussed this, but I think the judge was kind of disappointed in the kid, or he views him as a sort of disappointment, or something of that sort.
Yeah,
Absolutely. He couldn't fully give in.
Because he did not embrace, he did not become a dancer. He did not become a dancer. He's not a true dancer. He's a false dancer. The judge is the true dancer. That's that whole monologue at the end. That's 100% why he kills him. Because because it's the last part of the sacrifice, right? He's the last living one of the scalp hunters. So it's kind of like unfinished business. But like, if he had become like a true killer, maybe the Holden would have spared him. Made him his little Sith apprentice or whatever. but ultimately, the kid's ignorance and the kid's stubbornness is what both saves him and dooms him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I agree. It's and I talked with another guy who was in that conversation I was telling you about. We had a pretty long chat about Blood Meridian, and he mentioned that the kid is looking for a sort of father figure, which I thought was really interesting.
And that gets in that dance with Tobin and Glanton and the judge.
And yeah. But yeah, my theory is I don't think he fully gave in. He
absolutely
he's not a good guy, but he's not as depraved as. And you could say whatever you want, the moral fence sitting thing that the kid was paying the price for pretending he was better than the judge. But my theory is I think the judge was kind of disappointed in the kid for not fully becoming depraved and malicious as he is.
Absolutely. Without a doubt.
But yeah, towards the end, this kind of goes into why do you think that the kid did not kill the judge when he had the chance?
Fear.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it.
Even Tobin's telling him, shoot him, damn you. You'll never get another chance.
I don't think the kid believes that he can be killed. I think the kid, because he's refusing to give in, his stubbornness, his ignorance, I think he can see the judge for what he is easier than anybody else.
But that's my thing. I don't think it's that he's judging the kid for being a moral fence. I think it's like you said, he wants to stamp out what good he can. And the kid, despite the fact he's not a good guy and he was complicit in the scalp hunting, he didn't fully give in. There was still good in him. There was still decency in him.
And I think Holden thinks he could have been the next judge. He could have literally been if he had just let loose and embraced that. And that's what disappoints him in the end. And that, that whole monologue, I can't reference that enough. Just Google, Blood Meridian dancer quote and just read that monologue. That's it. That's the whole book right there in that little half page thing, because he's talking to him about, but is still the true dancers, right? And there will be many false dancers, but yet there is one true. And can you guess who that might be? You ain't nothing. It's very much him saying you could have been a dancer, but instead you disappointed me. You chose mercy.
You showed clemency to the heathen.
Mm-hmm. And you showed humanity ultimately.
Yeah, and the judge is just kind of...
Which is symbolized, again, by the ending, because after he's been killed and brutalized or whatever, there's still people putting light in those damn holes in the middle of the night. There's still people holding on to their humanity, holding on to civilization that's going to conquer the darkness.
Because I don't think the judge is a moral arbiter. He doesn't give a shit about any of that.
No, he cares about chaos and blood.
Yeah, it's that's kind of my issue with the moral fence sitter argument.
He would have loved the Spanish Inquisition just as much. or the Crusades.
Yeah, definitely.
It's not about right or wrong. It's about your commitment to the dance, your commitment to worshiping his god, which is war.
Yeah, that's my kind of issue, because it's like when you say it's for the kids' moral fence sitting, it makes it sound like the judge is making a moral condemnation. I don't think the judge is interested in that.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, the kid is morally fence sitting, very much like Llewellyn kind of thing, but I think it goes way deeper than simply like an inability to commit. There's a
he's disgusted by his inability to commit. That's it.
Yeah, and there's just so much nuance that goes into it that line after line that like just supports that theory.
Yeah, I mean, but yeah, no, I agree. Fear is why the kid didn't kill the judge.
Oh yeah.
I mean, and it's fair because the judge is horrifying, incarnate.
Well, I mean, and everything they've seen up until that point lends credence to the fact that he can't be killed.
Yeah, and what's his last line at the very end of the book? You can't kill him; he'll never die.
He is always dancing.
Yeah, exactly. What happened to Tobin? I'll say what I think happened. I think Judge Holden did something to him, and it wasn't good. Now, What do you think?
Agreed.
The judge did something because if I remember this line, he never heard rumors of the ex-priest or anything, but there's always rumors of the judge everywhere he goes.
Yeah, I don't think Tobin got out alive.
I don't think so either. He's like, I'm gonna go find a doctor, Which that also leads me to another question. Why do you think that the judge visits the kid in jail? You think it was just specifically to taunt him, or?
Absolutely, to taunt. Because I think he hates the kid.
Oh.
In the same way that he loves the kid, like
it's a toxic romance.
It is. I mean, literally. I was thinking in my head of American Beauty.
Oh yeah.
That with the dad next door, and then he's like, kissing Kevin Spacey, and then he shoots him. That's literally what I was thinking about. Yeah, I think, but specifically with the judge and Holden. I mean, yeah, it's like with the judge and the kid. Yes, there's a sexual component, but not really. It's more like you got to think more like on like the level of like theme and emotion rather than like person. So it's like he's this thing of war that wants this thing of war, but the little thing of war refuses to give in, and it's driving him up the wall. Mm-hmm. And so he's taunting him and killing his friends and doing this and doing that until finally he decides it's just time to kill him and be done with it.
Yeah, and like there's the creepy scene where he says, "Well, come here and let me whisper to you. I'll let you be. You'll be like a son to me." Like, what do you think that means? Like, do you think it's him like offering? For me, it's sort of him offering again to let him embrace the evil.
Yeah, I mean, come be my Sith apprentice. 100.
Pretty much. Yeah. Come be my Sith apprentice. Yep.
There's only war. Peace is a lie.
Yeah, it's like 1984. Peace is, or isn't it War is Peace or some shit? I don't remember. If anyone wants to. But yeah, no, I think Tobin, something happened to him. And it wasn't good. I'm sure.
Well, and I think he's also talking about like the idea that like ultimately like in the grand cosmos, are you gonna remember are you gonna remember the preacher? Or are you gonna remember the thing which scared you the most? And is mankind helpless to stand against it without any sort of faith? Which is why maybe the judge did take out Tobin so that he couldn't find the kid and so that the kid wouldn't have a defense against him.
Yeah, because again, he wants to stamp all the good, like you said earlier. Really like
to
put that.
And to isolate the kid.
Mm-hmm.
So.
What does the ending mean? Like, and I don't necessarily mean the bit with the fire.
The holes.
I mean, Judge dancing around.
Just that, well, I will say you got to take one with the other. That's kind of what I've been getting at. Is like you have to talk about the lights and the holes, only because the point of the ending is that the judge has been here forever. He will be here forever. The evil that lives in all of us is not going anywhere. It's going to be here forever. Mm-hmm. You cannot win. You cannot defeat evil. I mean, how long has mankind existed without getting biblical or anything like that, right? Like we've existed millennia, right? And look at that, with all of our technology, right? Mm-hmm. With all of our advancements, are people still killing each other?
Yes, for stupid reasons.
I rest my case.
Yeah, I agree. And that's, in my opinion, one of the most powerful final lines in literary history, which is, he says he'll never die. He's dancing. He dancing. He says he'll never die. Yeah. And what's interesting is that, like, you could get that sense of revelry. And and there's a lot, like, what does that mean? Like, what the fuck? Like, is it people embracing evil, or is it people celebrating evil? It's kind of.
Well, I think it's people are too stupid to understand. I mean, that's what he's trying to say is like people are like, oh, look at this guy, he's dancing, it's fun. There's the dancing bear, but in reality,
naked.
Oh yeah, or like in a loincloth. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what McCarthy's saying is like we're reveling and revering all these people while there are people getting shot in the street like 10 feet from us. There's a kid that's been raped and ripped apart in a tree behind the bar. Mm-hmm. And still we're doing this. And then it transitions into that scene with them digging the holes in the lights, because that's ultimately what he's trying to say is like all this bad stuff is happening, right? But yet Kyle and Britton are talking about this book on a podcast, right? Mm-hmm. They're not running around killing people. They're living their lives. They're building their own fences. That's the point that he's trying to say. That's the only way you can truly win, because clearly we cannot get rid of evil. We cannot. It cannot be done. If it has not been done in thousands of years we've existed, what we can do is just simply combat it by being good, decent people and living our lives.
Yeah, I mean that's the point of the road as well.
And No Country.
Yeah,
actually, the last scene.
I think No Country is more about disillusionment than as much.
Well, but if you think about the dream that the sheriff tells his wife about carrying the fire. Mm-hmm. It's very similar. And then I woke up, like I feel overmatched. Evil's winning. Evil's everywhere. I cannot win. Sugar, it cannot be killed. You see? Mm-hmm. And then it ends with, yeah, but I had this dream and my dad was there and I was carrying the fire and I felt safe. Like very similar concept. Whereas I'd argue No Country is definitely about disillusion, but No Country is also about mankind's exposure to violence, whereas like Blood Meridian is about mankind embracing the violence, because in No Country, like Sugar is obviously a very violent man, but but Llewellyn and Carson are vets.
Yeah,
they're Vietnam veterans, and that plays a big part into it. And then the sheriff, of course. So it's like you have Sugar like on the morality wheel, if you will. Like mm-hmm. Sugar's like evil, right? And the sheriff is like good, and then Llewellyn's like the common man in the middle. Mm-hmm. Moral fence sitting perhaps, but I would argue more he's actually human. He's got greedy parts, he's got good parts. He steals the money, he brings the guy water.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The
water.
So,
yeah.
which gets him in trouble. But I
think one of McCarthy's big themes that he has in his work, and it's very simple: your actions have consequences.
Absolutely. Your action has consequences, and
think about what you're doing before you do them. Like yes. You could slap that on a McCarthy book, and that's like, that's what it's about.
That evil is everywhere. It cannot be defeated. All you can do is your actions. Exactly. Is that you have to understand that your actions matter and try and be a decent person.
Yep. Yeah. No, it's. That's the best way I could put it, I mean, it's in at least most of the novels I've read, even from him, and I've only read
absolutely.
I've read Blood Meridian, No Country, All the Pretty Horses, Child of God.
I've read them all, but except for the two new ones, they're in my queue. I just haven't had time. Been very busy.
I think that's it. Yeah. That's it.
I'm excited to read the two new ones. They're in my queue.
But yeah, no, it's but yeah, no, it's yeah, but yeah, no, that's kind of what I think McCarthy is saying. Your actions matter. You may not think they do when you're doing them, but like it's like in No Country, like one moral error can really bite you in the ass.
Absolutely.
Or it's more about like how the thoughtlessness that goes into morality. Like there's like people don't respect it. Like morality is such a powerful thing. Like you have to respect it.
Absolutely.
Or yeah, no, I could be on something. I don't know, but that's what I think.
No, I think it's a good theory.
It's like Llewellyn takes the money and then he's like, dang it, and he takes the water and then the Mexican cartels show up. It's like you can't fucking do that, man. You're gonna die, and he does die. And in this, it's a bit more extreme, though. In Blood Meridian, it feels more extreme.
Oh, yeah.
Because
the
kid gets involved with, like, the most, like, disgusting scum of the planet, but he doesn't fully give in. And the judge is like, well... I didn't really say that, but you get what I'm saying, hopefully.
I wasted all that time trying to show you the truth, and then you choose to deny me.
Yeah, it's almost like he's this like perverted version of Jesus.
Oh yeah, no, there's no question.
McCarthy loves his biblical references.
Yes, he does, very much so.
Yeah, no, that is a good way to describe McCarthy's work, is biblical.
Absolutely. I'm saying that's what the prose is like, yeah.
Yeah, I know. I mean, like, it's just, like, it's so good. Oh, yeah, and then there's the Delawares who are just, oh, my God. What are some standout moments for Blood Meridian for you?
Volcano, obviously, is, like, the whole thing. The scene at the well. Scene with the Mexican entertainer family that when they do the tarot cards.
Mm-hmm.
The ending, of course, in the bar, the scene at the creek bed, the final showdown between the two, between the kid and Holden, the massacre of the outrider, the long riders, whatever, the military guys at the beginning by the Indians, because that is where that's where it sets the tone, like, and this is the world you live in.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I like the bit with the priest. Because again, it's just like, well, why did the judge do that? And it's funny. Yeah. and like, why were the people so blasé about it? They're just like, where'd you get the goods on him? And then he's all like, I never fucking saw that guy in my life. And then they just start laughing. I'm like,
they start laughing. Because they're covering for the fact that they probably hung the guy and he's hanging outside, a tree right now, outside the tent.
Is it go back to what you were saying earlier about people being too stupid to notice like true evil?
Yes, 100.
Yeah.
I mean, stupid might not be the right word, but like there's because anybody can be duped.
Oblivious.
Oblivious, distracted.
Because it's like it's such like, and again, this is probably sad because this shit probably happens in the real world, but like when I think of that, I'm just like I mean, I don't want to say I would be horrified in that situation, but I don't know. I would, if I were in that situation, I probably would be horrified, like, oh shit, we just like murdered a probably innocent guy, We might have just done that.
I think it, especially with how like divided America is right now, I think it doesn't surprise me at all. The kind of things that people will go along with to get. I mean,
maybe it's just me being young. I don't know. Maybe that's just it. But it's like, and that's funny you mentioned that. I remember I watched a video from this guy on YouTube, about Judge Holden, and I don't want to get too political on here, so I'll try and keep this very brief. But he was talking about how like Trump.
I have been alluding to it the entire podcast, so that's fine. That's what I've been trying to say without saying it. Yes, absolutely.
again, I'll try and keep this short because I'm like,
me too. I try to stay out of it, but yes, absolutely, 100%.
Now, of course, Trump is not as loquacious as the judge.
Well, but like
he does the same exact thing the judge does at the revival.
Right, but even if you don't want to use a modern politician, Hitler.
Yeah.
It's the same kind of,
But yeah, that's kind of why I think the novel's about evil. It's talking about, like you said earlier, how easy it is.
How easy it is, absolutely. I mean, you ever hear the story about what it might even not be true, but it strikes me as true, where when the Nazis took over, they would, a Nazi officer would go to a classroom, like an elementary school classroom,
mm-hmm.
and they would tell the children to close their eyes and ask God to give them candy. Right? And of course, there would be no candy. And then they would say, now close your eyes and ask Hitler to give you candy. And the officer would put a piece of candy on each desk.
That's off-putting.
but again, that's how easy it can happen. That's how easy somebody like Holden is dancing on the stage.
Yeah, no, it's talking about how easy it is, for people to follow behind. Like, Nuremberg trials, and you see,
right.
like, the people who were tried, and they're just, like, these average people, like, they didn't do
Right. They went along with horrific things, exactly. And that's what the gang is. The gang is a personification of that, right? They're just, they're that cranked up to 11.
Yeah, but it's the banality of evil, as Hannah Arendt would eventually call it.
Yes, absolutely. Without question.
And the judge is just going in, and he's reveling in the chaos in the meantime.
That he is.
Would you say Judge Holden is one of the most depraved villains in literature? Because I would.
Yeah, he's up there. I think he's the scariest.
Well, why do you think he's? I mean, aside from, I agree, but why do you think he's the scariest?
Because he's plausible. I mean, we just talked about how somebody with similar tendencies was the president of the United States. I mean, he's plausible. I would go so far as to even say perhaps inevitable.
I mean, that is a bit bleak when you put it like that.
I mean, yeah, but I mean, I agree with McCarthy. That's kind of where I'm at. Like, I do, but I also agree with the hope part of it, in that the only thing that you can do as a mere mortal is just protect yourself and your family and try to make good choices.
Yeah, kind of sounds like a bummer though. Sounds like oh man, like that's the
well,
do.
last time I checked, nobody felt like getting a warm hug when they finished a McCarthy book.
Yeah, no,
it was more like I need a shower and a.
That's another thing I wanted to bring up. Like the atmosphere of this novel and a lot of his books are so like tangible. Like you can feel it.
More so in Blood Meridian than any of his other ones. It's because like the way he writes the landscape, it's like it's its own. Like when he's describing like bones of dead horses, and they were incandescent in the sun, and just even like throwaway people have like awesome lines, like when they find the kid, and they're up, and like the one guy's like, when the lambs is in the mountain, they is cry. Sometime comes the mother, sometime comes the wolf. I mean, just like and then they're gone, and that's it. It's just everything is so ominous. It's literally a living hellscape.
Yeah,
I agree with that. It's literally a living hellscape. I always feel like a nuclear bomb has been dropped on the world that they're in, and they're like living in the aftermath of it. That like, because like every town is like just half dead, half starving, half thirsty, dilapidated.
Like, why do you think that McCarthy started his like Western career? I guess you could say, because he was primarily known for, or I guess. Well, if he were known by the time he put out Blood Meridian, why do you think he started out with Blood Meridian first?
I think because that's the story he always wanted to tell, and it was in his head for a very long time. I would double down on that and say I guarantee you he already wrote the screenplay before he died, without a doubt.
Fair enough.
The amount of research that goes into this novel, the amount of research he did, the thematic depth, the careful word choice. There is no way that he just simply woke up one day and said, you know, I'm going to tell like this story. No way. That was like forming in this guy's head probably his whole life, parts of it, themes of it.
Yeah. That's fair. It's definitely his magnum opus in terms of just like, here's what I want to say. There you go. Would I call it my favorite McCarthy novel? Maybe. I don't know. It's the one that's had the most impact on me that's not like The Road. But then again, most of his books have had an impact on me that I've read.
Me too. It's my favorite. I don't return to it. I mean, I've read it about 10, 12 times. I don't return to it like super often like some other novels that I enjoy.
Yeah, I mean it's a tough undertaking.
It's tough. Well, it's tough and it affects you psychologically. I mean, just like reading it, it's a downer. Like you said, I mean, it's a total downer.
There's people who say that like, I was actually reading a question about does the violence ever get boring? But do you think that's the point? Oh. Do you think that's the point? You just get used to it after a while.
The point is to desensitize you. Absolutely. It's almost to hypnotize you.
Mm-hmm.
So that you're as lost as they are. Absolutely.
Oh. Excuse me. Sorry. My nose runs sometimes. Yeah. But yeah, no, it's like, because I was just reading a question, just kind of like, get some food for thought before we did this, and but yeah, I'm like, do you think that was, because I think it's intentional to like, desensitize you to the violence.
Absolutely.
Because, they grow desensitized to the violence after a while. I mean, you kind of...
it's a way of life.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. But yeah, no, there's not really much else to talk about.
No, I think we hit it all.
Yeah, that's good. I was kind of nervous it would cut into another thing I was going to do later today, but I got some time. But
that's perfect.
I am going to read Suttree soon. Though I'm reading The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay in Embassy Town right now, so I might, after I read those, I might try and read something lighter before I get to Suttree. You said I might like Suttree.
I think you will. It's his most like kind of like Mark Twainish and Faulknerish, not in the lightheartedness. Like there's still the same themes and stuff, but it's just there's a lot of like eclectic characters that I think you'll enjoy.
But yeah, Blood Meridian, a terrifying novel. A disgusting novel, aside from maybe Child of God, which for right now for me is probably my least favorite of his books. I want to read it again at some point because I don't think I was in the right headspace to read it. But
it's pretty messed up.
There's one last thing. Do you think that Child of God is his nastiest novel? Or do you think Blood Meridian's his nastiest novel?
Blood Meridian.
All right, yeah.
There's a certain poetry to the necrophilia of Child of God that kind of you're spared a lot of it. Mm-hmm. Whereas Blood Meridian, you're spared very, very, very little.
It's uncompromising. So yeah, final thoughts, Kyle.
I'm curious to see who he's going to cast to play the judge.
Think like really D'Onofrio or something.
D'Onofrio, Tom Noonan. Weird choice, but I've always thought he would be good at it. Would be Vince Vaughn.
He was good in Brawl on Cell Block 99.
Cell Block 99. Yeah, he's big.
Yeah, he's a big boy too.
I try and think of big actors who are imposing. Stephen Root from Barry. He can do serious pretty good.
No, he can. I'm just like, do I see him as the judge though?
I mean, but if you shaved him, you know. I hope they don't pick Timothée Chalamet to be the kid. I think as much as I adore Timothy, he's way too pretty.
Yeah.
For he's way too good looking. I think Josh Brolin would be an excellent Glenn.
Yeah, no,
excellent Glenn.
I don't disagree with that.
Toadvine, people always say Willem Dafoe.
Oh god.
But
that might be too predictable.
But here's who I always think of when I think of Toadvine. You've seen Heat, I assume, right?
Yes, I love that movie. Uh-huh.
Wayne Grow.
Oh, the guy who played Wayne Grow. Yeah. All right. Yeah.
That is my Toadvine in my head forever. I cannot get him out of my head. That is what I think of. The second I started reading the novel, the way he described his hair and everything, I was like, oh, it's that guy from Heat. So, Tobin, I don't know. I like Scott Glenn. I think he's a little too old. I always got the impression that Tobin was a little younger.
Yeah, I kind of got the feeling he was like middle-aged or something.
Yeah. So actually Justin Theroux from The Leftovers though would be a great Tobin actually.
Yeah.
He would be great as Tobin. And I don't think anybody else really truly matters character-wise. As long as you get those four, you're going to be pretty straight.
Idris Elba as Black
Johnson. As Black Johnson. That would be that again probably a little old at this point, but that would be cool. But Daniel Kaluuya though. Because my God, that man has some acting chops. My God. And then
he's very good at Spider-Punk, but I'm biased.
And he was great. And
he's also very good in Get Out too. So
I liked him in Nope quite a bit. Actually.
He was good in Nope.
Do you see him in Widows? Do you see Widows?
Yes, a while back. Probably my least favorite Steve McQueen movie though.
Same here, but scene where he makes the guy rap and then just starts shooting everybody while he's rapping. Yeah. Oh my God, that scene is so terrifying. Oh my God, he's so scary. But he would be good. Yeah,
he can do that kind of like Deadeye,
Yeah.
Like Giancarlo Esposito can it's just he can just.
Yeah, I always thought for the kid that what's the kid's name? Ty Sheridan. I thought he would have been good, but he's probably too old now. I think they're gonna have to go with an unknown.
Yeah.
For the kid. I think it's probably going to have to be an unknown because there's really no younger men right now that are that I think have the chop. Chalamet is probably the only one I think truly has the chops to do it, but I just don't think he aesthetically, I don't know. And plus that kid's in everything. He needs a break. So, all right, man. Well, thank you for having me. This was really fun.
This was good. This was a good one.
Yeah.
I was kind of nervous it wouldn't go that great, and I'm like, oh crap, because I did one on Transmetropolitan the other day, and I wouldn't say it went disastrously, but it was kind of chaotic. But this went well. This was good.
Absolutely. Well, be excited to get back once I get through my my surgery. So
yeah, man, you take care.
I will. All right, man.
Share social media or anything like that.
Just Kyle Jonathan on Facebook, and then spoilerfreemoviesleuth.com. We just did a whole new, our editor Chris just did a whole new revamp of the website. It's really cool. We've got a lot of really well-known critics, our editor. He's part of the Michigan Film Critics Society. My colleague Michelle Kistner, she is on the Detroit Film Critics Society, Rotten Tomato approved.
I've been trying to get her on my show. Dang it.
So
we just need to set up a time.
So there you go. Yeah, she's great. She's fantastic. One of my best movie friends. So
oh yeah.
And ironically enough, just like you, me and her became friends arguing over a movie. So it was really funny.
It's funny how that works. All right. Take care, everyone.
Yep.
And
take it easy.
Bye bye.
Yep. Absolutely. Hit me anytime. I'll see you later. Bye bye.